Hi, I'm Nancy, an elder of the Strangers Gate Coven of the Temple of the Spiral Path. Temple members have been practicing the eclectic shadowfolk tradition of witchcraft since 1996, celebrating our connections to the old ones via magical work and rituals incorporating songs, visual arts, and other crafts, and instructing others through our teaching collective. Thank you for tuning in to our Autumn Equinox video. The use of the term Mabon instead of Autumn Equinox is fairly recent, not ancient. In 2011, writer Sarita Deste interviewed fellow author Aidan Kelly, who explained in the mid-1970s he'd chosen the term Mabon because it was easier to say than Autumn Equinox or Fall Equinox, much as Lith is easier than Midsummer or Summer Solstice. In the Welsh tale The Mabinogion, Mabon ap Modron translates as Divine Son of the Divine Mother. In the story of Cwlch's efforts to marry Olwen, Mabon is the only person able to handle the hunting hound that can find the supernatural boar required to fulfill one of the impossible tasks. Cwlch goes to his friend King Arthur to ask for aid in finding Mabon, who was kidnapped at only 3 days old in the distant past, and Arthur provides helpers including Sir Gwir, who can speak to birds and animals. Gwir guides all to the ouzel, a kind of bird sometimes associated with the raven, who says that while she's been around long enough to have pecked an anvil down to the size of a nut, she's never heard of Mabon. She suggests they go to the older stag of Redinbury. The stag says he's seen a sapling grow into a tree with 1,000 branches and then wither down to a stump, but he's never heard of Mabon. So he guides all to the elder owl of Cwm Clwyd. The owl tells them she's seen her homewoods die and grow back thrice, yet she has never heard of Mabon, but perhaps the ancient eagle of Gwern Abbey knows more. The eagle relates how he'd once flown to Sin Siu and snatched a great salmon for a meal, but the salmon nearly pulled him underwater. They made a truce, and the eagle took 50 fish spears from his back, so perhaps the salmon might help. The venerable salmon relates he swims every tide up the river Severn as far as the walls of Gloucester, and there he said he found a great wrong as he had never found anywhere else. 2 knights ride upon his shoulders up the river to Gloucester, where they hear weeping and speak to the woeful prisoner Mabon. They return later with Arthur and other knights to free him, and Mabon then helps them find and conquer the great boar so that Cwlch can marry Olwen. While this is an excellent tale of ancient animal spirits, wisdom, and finding things that are lost, I don't see much of a connection with the autumn equinox. I've also read articles relating Mabon to the Roman god Meponus, who's similar to the Greek god Apollo, but can't find historical evidence to support this, nor do I see much of a link between those deities and the autumn equinox. That being said, the term Mabon's been used for almost 50 years by practitioners worldwide, so it's gained considerable energy. So, if you choose to use the term Mabon, go right ahead. I and my fellow temple members do all the time, because as Aidan Kelly said, it's easier to say than autumn equinox. Here's my coven sister with more info about the Sabbat.
I'm Ruth Ann, also an elder of Strangers Gate Coven with the Temple of the Spiral Path. I'm going to tell you about the autumn equinox. At the time of the autumn equinox, the sun rises exactly in the east and sets exactly in the west. Day and night get equal time of 12 hours each. This occurs between the 20th and the 24th of September. This year, it falls on the 22nd. The sun enters the sign of Libra, the scales of balance. Libra energy perspective from all sides to receive balance. It is a time of balance of opposites. For example, we have the yin and the yang symbol. This is the second of 3 harvest festivals coming between Lunasa and Samhain. At Lunasa, corn, wheat, and barley are harvested. At the second harvest of the autumn equinox, fruits such as grapes and particularly apples are now picked from vines and trees for making wine and cider. It is the time when most of the harvest is picked, which also includes pumpkins, squash, acorns, and other root crops. Then at Samhain, the third harvest, animals are slain for their meat to sustain people throughout the winter. This is also the pagan Thanksgiving, a time for reflection, sharing lessons learned, and being thankful for all blessings. In Wiccan practice, this is the time when the god sacrifices the last of himself to provide us with the bulk of the harvest before winter comes. We celebrate him and give thanks to him for his sacrifice of light for the coming dark half. Symbols of the equinox are apples, wine, vines, garlands, gourds, and the cornucopia. The apple is a symbol of life renewed. Cut vertically, the apple reveals the goddess, newly pregnant, and the seeds represent new life to come. Cut horizontally, the seeds show a pentacle. We begin to see autumn colors at this time: red, orange, gold, rust, earthy colors. For me, reddish-brown says autumn. Deities are the wine and harvest gods. In ancient Greece, we have the festival of Dionysus, god of vegetation and wine. This is the time of the grape harvest. Men would carry grapevines in procession throughout the towns in Greece, followed by a ritual feast, songs, storytelling, and myth reenactments.
Hi, I'm Athena. There are many aspects of this myth of the season: loss, searching, finding, descent, journey, and reemergence, but transformed, light and dark. Demeter is the great harvest goddess, the earth mother of the grain and fertility. She is responsible for the cycle of the seasons and is the focus of the important cult in Eleusis. Kore is a maiden and is Demeter's only daughter. When Kore is transformed from maiden to queen as the wife of Hades, the lord of the underworld, she becomes Persephone, the bringer of destruction, she who shines in the dark. Proserpina is her equivalent Roman name. The myth centers on the abduction of Kore by Hades. Kore is picking flowers in a field when suddenly the earth opens up and outrides Hades in his chariot. He seizes her into his arms and takes her below. When Demeter returns, she finds only the scattered flowers on the grass and her daughter gone. Demeter called to Zeus, who failed to hear her cries. Furious and in despair, she fled Olympus and wandered the earth for 10 days, disguised as an old woman. Fasting and having not eaten the food of the gods, she finally takes shelter at her temples in Eleusis. She was welcomed by King Celeus and agreed to nurse and care for his 2 sons. Still in her grief, Demeter withheld her care of the land. No fertility took place across the whole of the earth. Crops did not grow, and the world grew cold, and the people began to suffer. The gods pleaded with Zeus, who commanded his messenger, Hermes, to return Persephone to her mother, and so he did. However, Hades persuaded Persephone to eat of fruit pomegranate seeds, which then kept her bound to the underworld. Zeus intervened and demanded that Persephone be allowed to spend half her time in Olympus and the other half in the underworld. Kore and Demeter are reunited, and all are happy. The world is abundant with celebrations. The Eleusinian Mysteries were one of the most talked about events that was widely celebrated in ancient Greece. It was one of the most important myths of Demeter that was annually celebrated in September through October. Anyone could be initiated, and it was mandatory that the initiate fast. The initiations were kept secret, and to this day, no one knows exactly what happened during these rites. The initiation festival lasted over a 2-day period and involved a dramatic enactment of the myth of Demeter and Persephone. Persephone spends the winter months in the underworld and rises each spring to spend the season with her mother. She symbolizes the seed corn that rises and falls again and the continuous cycle of death and rebirth, the constant cycle of renewal. The land becomes abundant when she visits her mother and becomes infertile when she returns to the underworld in the autumn and winter seasons. The Eleusinian mysteries have evolved from an older festival in which pigs were laid into the earth and drawn back up, like Persephone. Snakes were also part of the rituals. Later rites had to do with initiation, visioning, and purification, to being an initiatory rite of the journey, a descent into darkness, and emerging transformed. Here are a few ritual ideas you can perform in Demeter's honor. You can have food offerings of various meats, grains, and vegetables. You can perform a self-blessing purification rite in her honor so you can learn of the mysteries. It's also a great time to do some scrying during a dark moon. Decorate your altar with pomegranate seeds and enjoy the sacred drink of the gods. With many abundant wishes, thank you, and blessed be.
One way to celebrate the autumn equinox is to make a cornucopia and place it on the altar. Have each participant place inside a food item to share, such as apples, gourds, grapes, or maybe something they've baked. And for balance of night and day, you could add black and white cookies. Your circle would then give thanks and bless the bounty, maybe with a poem or song. Then everyone can partake of the goodness of their harvest.
Another ritual idea is to recreate the search for Mabon, either through meditation or by having folks play the various characters. If you're crafty, you can create a mask or other item with autumn leaves, either real or artificial. You can either get a plain mask or cut one out of paper and then glue the various items on, as I've done here. I made holes in my mask so that I could put my glasses through it, but you can also use elastic or other ties to put it onto your head. Another seasonally appropriate idea is to make corn husk dolls, and I was in our Lunasa video with instructions on how to do that. Thank you for tuning in to the Temple of the Spiral Path's latest video offering. We hope that you will share our videos and visit our website, templeofthespiralpath.com. Blessed Autumn Equinox.